Okay, so it is November 22nd at about 5:30 in the morning, people. My sleeping hours are whacked. So I'm in the sewing room, aka War Room 2. Technically, I should be sorting out papers, right? I just can't wrap my head around it, people. Right? But I'm going to do this since I'm sitting here, right? Only because I'm sitting here and I don't really want to move too much. I'm waiting to see what the weather is going to be like. Because if it's not real freezing, because it's starting to freeze now, things are starting to freeze, people. Right? I'm going outside. I have to because, if I don't, it's like I said before, it's just a heat score. It's just something for people to complain about and attack me on. Right? Whoever it may be. To criticize me, gaslight me, whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. All boils down to the same shit. People use this yard against me. Right? Even my own kids. Right? They're quick to jump on that bandwagon when stress hits. Right? Like, if the city was to show up, people, and start up with what the city was doing a couple of years ago, they had me out there for fucking over a year, right? 4 or 5 days a week, moving wood around in the rain, whatever it was that I was going through at that time, don't ever think that it won't happen again, because this house is targeted to be developed into the epitome of what is right in British Columbia, Canada. Right? It's just a matter of time before I'm forced out of this house by any means necessary, people. Right? Whether my grandson outgrows this house because of his medical conditions in terms of he can't move, and I gotta start getting lifts and all this other stuff, and and wheelchairs, and obviously I won't be able to live here, so it's just a matter of time there, right? If he's gonna stay with me, right? Or if, these property developers want to buy this property because they want to own all 4 houses in a row, so when it comes time to approach the city, they're not having to dicker with somebody else. They're coming in with their own agenda, their own blueprint, their own improvement plan. And where am I going, people? Where am I going? There's nowhere for me to go. So, in the back of everybody's mind, that's there. It's like a ticking time bomb, just waiting for it to happen. It's just a matter of time before something happens. Right? And that builds frustration. It builds fear. It builds dysfunction. Right? Gotta blame somebody for it when things don't go right. Right? And mom and dad are usually the easiest target when it comes to displaced anger. Right? When things aren't going the way you thought that they were going to go. And don't forget, I'm dealing with all these doctors, people that just insist that they're so important and that they're going to be in your life for the next umpteen years until Amari turns 18. And then once he's 18, it's c'est la vie. And then you're struggling for funds because he's disabled. Right? It's a whole new batch of problems. Right? And hurdles to jump. Right? Which brings new stress. As the doctors are still looking for something wrong so they can keep busy. keep you running on your toes. Right? Don't breathe. Agenda 21, Agenda 30. They're using doctors to intimidate people. Because some of this stuff that's going on with Amari, I'm telling you, it's not what we think it is, people. Okay? There's only so much that you can do for Amari, right, in terms of his development, right? But when you're going to a doctor that is always looking for something wrong, and I don't mean they're looking for something wrong, but that's basically what they're doing. You know, oh, his eyes are crossed. Well, yeah, I think everybody can see that. We all know that. Okay, so you give him an eye test. Oh, well, he can see, right? It's just one eye shut down because he's cross-eyed, right? So he's learned to use basically the one eye. So if you put a patch on the good eye, his brain at some point tries to readjust itself and relearn how to use that eye. But at the end of the day, it's never going to correct his cross-eyedness. The only thing that might, and I'm using this as an example, might correct his cross-eyedness is, what is it called? Surgery. And even then, it's not going to completely make it straight for his eyes. And it's not going to change his loss of 3D vision. Because he apparently has lost that due to this stuff. Right? But people can go about their business without 3D vision. So, you know, any surgery that he's going to have in regards to his eyes is purely cosmetic. Nothing more. What it does is it prevents children, people, from supposedly teasing him when he goes to kindergarten or grade school, grade 1 or whatever. Whatever these people think Amari's going to do, they want to give him eye surgery because that's the norm, right? Even though it's only cosmetic, right? So that he doesn't get teased in school, as if he would even understand what it means to be teased. But yet, they won't circumcise him for me. Okay? Because I want him circumcised for prevention of future pain in terms of having penis problems that boys can have, right? That are not circumcised. In addition to prevent people future molestation from a caregiver to Amari. Because I don't know where Amari's going to be in the next 20 to 25, 30 years from now. I don't know who's going to be watching him. And the last thing I want is for him to be a man having a penis problem with a lot of pain, with some caregiver coming along and doing whatever that caregiver so pleases to choose to do. Whether they make my grandson suffer more in pain as they go about cleaning it and putting, little creams on it to try and cut back on infections that men can get from not being circumcised. Because he won't be able to do it for himself, people. Somebody else is going to have to do it for him. But they won't do that. That costs $300 to pay out of pocket to get that done for Amari. But they're quick to fucking operate on his eyes. Just like they were quick to do that MRI. Right? And if I wouldn't have done that MRI, people, they would never have shut up about it. I'm serious. Right? But they're not doing it to find out how he got injured. And if they are, it's only with forked tongue. It's not with anything definite. Because if he got injured at birth through that C-section, the MRI should have been done then. And because it wasn't, somehow that dissolves them of their responsibility for his injuries, because it wasn't documented at the time of his birth. But they still want to have it, right? So they're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do that, right? And God knows what they're going to do, because I'll tell you, if this doctor doesn't have no great grand news flash, I'm going to say, well, in 20 years from now, we're going to see what the result of that MRI was. We're going to see what the result is, people. Because they're not going to be doing this every fucking year, every 2 fucking years, without me complaining about it, okay? Unless they can validate that whatever they need to do, again, in terms of an MRI, in 2 years or a year or 3 or whatever they think they're going to do, because they're on this bandwagon, people. We're on a bandwagon with a whole group of fucking people that got their fingers in the cookie jar. Okay? Or they've stuck their pin into the pin cushion. Because Amari's like a pin. Well, I'm sorry. Amari is like a pin cushion. And you got all these fucking pins in it. Right? Eye doctor. You know, we got to take him to a dentist. Which I was going to do anyway. They wanted me to take him to a specialist dentist. But I had already planned to take him to a regular dentist. So we're sticking with the regular dentist first, because it's not at the children's hospital a million miles away. It's just over here at the mall, right? So I'm thinking that's maybe when I'm going to buy Andre a fish. I'm thinking about it, right? And I haven't set up the fish tank yet, though. And what do you call it? If that dentist feels that Amari's teeth are that whacked out, what do they want to do? Start putting mouth braces in him all night long, every day, all day long, like they'd want to do with his legs? Like, fuck, why not just make a body cast with something to stuff in his mouth, place him there, put him on display, and let him be like that for the next 35 fucking years of his life until he dies. And the minute he dies, people, you know what they're going to be doing? They're going to be swarming his body for his organs. That's exactly what they're going to be doing. That hospital is bringing in training a specialized team to harvest organs out of children's bodies. They're training doctors for that purpose in that hospital. And there's only 2 types of kids that participate in that program. The ones who need the organs, right? You know, the little children that run down the hall but have some organ problem that if they don't get a new organ, they're just going to stop running down the hall and they're going to probably die or be very sick for their whole life. Or there's the children like Amari who can't move, who can't defend themselves, who's constantly being told that there's something wrong with them by whatever doctor comes into contact with them. You know, so therefore that devalues their life right there, because these doctors aren't, look, right? I'm listening. Amari's in bed. He was playing. I think I hear him. Right? So who do you think is the organ donor in this situation? And if they don't take it out of him as a child, well, he could be 35 years old and die, and that's the first thing they're going to say. Are you going to willing to donate his organs? You know? Save 8 lives? As Amari suffered his whole life to even get to that point? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars is being made off of Amari as I speak. And that pressure that comes with that basically falls on two people's shoulders. Mine and Tisha's. That's it. We're his caregivers, people. So we're obligated to meet all these expectations that these doctors and other workers who come into contact with the Mari, right? We're obligated to meet their expectations, which instills fear. Fear, people. Because if we don't meet those expectations, then we're subject to be scrutinized to find out why we haven't met those expectations. Why doesn't Amari talk? Well, I don't know. You're the doctor. You came from the United Emirate, right? You're a pretty smart person. You're sitting up in my country telling me what you think is right? You know, you're the doctor. Why are you asking me why Amari can't talk? And because he can't talk, then you have to now take him to a speech therapist. So they can give you little exercises like stuff an apple in his mouth so that he can gnaw on it and it gets him using his jaw. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, what if he takes off a big chunk and starts choking on it and you've got him strapped in a fucking chair? Well, that's not going to work because he'll just choke to death. So, you know, you can't have him strapped in a chair as you stuff an apple piece into his mouth, hoping that he can learn to go like this so that he can learn to talk. Right? As they're pushing medication on you to relax his muscles or stop his drooling. Or better yet, both. Because it feeds into the pharmaceutical industry, right? Let me tell you something. Before I would consider muscle relaxants that are on the market right now, I would go to my family doctor and I would talk about, what is that called? CB oil, right? CB oil, I think it's called. It comes from the pot plant, the oil, which is a natural muscle relaxant. I might consider that because it's proven to help children with seizures and the whole 9 yards, right? I think there's more truth to that than what these doctors are trying to tell us as they're pushing other medications that literally destroy brains, like Uncle John. Right? They destroyed his brain real fucking quick with their OxyContin and whatever else that they were giving him. Real fucking quick, people. And what is OxyContin? Pain? Pain related? Right? They move Amari, and he goes like this because one, he's always been jumpy, people. He came out jumpy. Right? Sometimes before it used to be pretty bad. Now it's not so bad, but he still gets jumpy. And this doctor from the United Emirate, is touching him. Now you have to remember, this is a person I've never fucking met in my whole fucking life that's like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from my fucking country, but comes into my country and tells me, well he must be in pain because he jumped when I touched him. He's stiff. He needs to go on a muscle relaxant. I'm like, no, he doesn't cry out in pain, right? He moves around. He doesn't fuss when he's moving, right? He's not like what you think, right? So, I mean, if they're going to start ramming that down my throat, people, right, he needs to do this, go on medicine for, to relax his muscles because that's what the norm is. That's the push the envelope, right? Push the agenda, right? Do as the doctor says, right? And what do you call it? I mean, if it really goes down that direction, where I can see Amari is in pain, really in pain, and it's bothersome, and we can't, fix it any other way, then yeah, I would start making inquiries about that CB oil before I would anything that's on the market when it comes to what they're giving to the standard practice. I wouldn't even call it the best practice, just standard practice, people. Right? So, when you're up against those kind of things, you come into contact with the doctors or whoever, they don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like it when you stand up for yourself or for your family, because it takes away from their authority, right? It takes away from their self-esteem, their position in life, their superiority. That's what it does. It takes away from their superiority, right? And, so anyway, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Just the stressors is what I'm talking about. It's the stressors that's going on in the house. And so anyway, Tisha and I, we're trying to keep up with that, right? We're trying to just keep up with the demands, I guess you can say. Because there's a lot of demands right now, people. And, they're pretty blatant with, well, you're stuck with us now until, he's 18. And then at age 18, we're just going to drop off the fucking grid, instantly. And then you're going to go into a new batch of problems. And that's assuming that I'm even alive, people. That's assuming that I'm even alive. So when I write this lawsuit, my son's moving around down there, getting ready to go to work. When I write this lawsuit, I'm going to make sure I make mention of how tens of thousands of dollars is being spent on Amari for things that basically can't be changed. Right? Outside of one, maybe aggravating it and making it worse. Right? Give him medicine to dry up his mouth, and then what? He becomes dehydrated and can't eat even, he has a harder time eating because he has no saliva, because they dry up the saliva glands. Right? Because it's all about perception, like his eyes. Well, if we make his eyes a little more straighter, he won't get teased at school by fucking kindergartners. Right? Or what, in grade 4? Right? What's Amari going to do in class in grade 4? What class do they plan on putting him in, people? Do I have a say in it, people? Or am I just supposed to bundle him up and send him on a bus with a public union sector that wants to sit up there and say they have our best interest at heart in terms of serving the public? As they run you ragged, and keep you on your toes and make you afraid to say no if you disagree with something, but then in the same breath tell you, oh no, you don't have to do this. You really don't. It is a choice, right? You don't have to have eye surgery. It is cosmetic. You don't have to have an MRI. It's, nobody's forcing you to do it. But if you don't do it, I can't be the good doctor that I am, right? I can't do my job, which is a trickle-down effect, right? So it builds up a lot of stress, right? That's the thing about when you have a special needs child. It builds up a lot of stress. And because Shimei isn't here to help with that stress in terms of, the escape valve as another caregiver to Amari, it's basically falling on two shoulders that creates a lot of displaced anger. And then the thing about displaced anger, though, is sooner or later it's going to come to the surface, and it has to be directed to somebody. So that somebody just happens to be me. That's just all par and parcel of being a mother. I learned that over the years, people, with my other kids. Right? Everybody goes in cycles. You know, and with the internet now interfering with people's brain development and distracting them from things in life that are used to be normal, not anymore. It's not normal to have hobbies, right? In terms of, like, it doesn't matter what the hobby is, right? If you have a hobby, it doesn't fit with the norm of cell phones are a very, very, very big distraction. Internet is too. And everybody starts competing on a psychological level in terms of where do you get your self-esteem when your self-esteem has already been ran through the mud wherever it is that you go in life. And our self-esteems have been run through the mud for a very, 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 very long time, people. Right? Because we're a targeted family. Just trying to survive. It's kind of a little like the Lord of the Rings, because there's all these kids with very few adults around. And, but then, for the predators in the community, that's what they like. Right? Because kids are easier to control and manipulate. So, it's not really what I wanted to say. Right? I gotta get in here and start picking papers. That's what I was gonna do, but I don't know. I feel like I owe an explanation as to this. I hate you. I hate you. I think that's where a lot of this I hate you comes from, because of the pressure building up from strangers, people. From strangers that, not all of them, but some of them are trying to cover tracks. You know, like, for them to sit up there and say Shimei had no medical care, like prenatal care, it's a bunch of bullshit. Because all they have to do, people, is go into her medical records, contact her baby doctor, and call up the baby doctor and say, hey, how many times did Shimei see you? Baby doctor goes into the Shimei's records, and it's all there, people. But instead, they want to just whisper in the halls, tell you that Amari's not talking, you know. He needs this, and he needs that, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do that, and I don't know. Well, in the back of your mind, you know what's going on. And you're helpless to do anything about it other than do what you can in a day to meet these people's expectations. I don't know. It's more than that, people. It's more than that. The only thing that's missing in this equation, in terms of all these workers around Amari, is the foster care parent. The person who can make $3,000 a month taking him to all these appointments as these doctors add on more, add on more, add on more. And because the foster parent is being paid to do what the doctor tells them to do, Amari would be more subject to more tests, more experimental procedures, more this, more that, at the taxpayer's expense, as the foster care parent receives $3,000 plus per month to accommodate those dictations. They're not even request people, they're dictations. Right? I'm the only thing that stands in the way of Amari being completely exploited through the healthcare system. Right? Which causes strife. But at the end of the day, it's the stress and the pressure that these people are placing on my family that's agitating the current situation in terms of having to look after Amari without his mother being around. Right? Because we're not looking at just short term, we're looking at long term. And some of that requires commitment, people. Commitment where that commitment isn't necessarily there because people want to get on with their own lives. They don't necessarily want the responsibility. However that responsibility comes. Right? And if they do, they want it on their terms and nobody else's terms except their terms, which, from my standpoint of view, isn't going to happen. Right? Just like they don't want to be nobody's bitch, well, I don't want to be nobody's bitch either. Right? So, I think this is copper, or brass, or both. You see? The blade itself is different. This part is a copper or a brass, or a combination of both, which I have a cleaner for that. I can take an actual cleaner to that, which I will do. These were handmade from something else, maybe, I don't know. So I don't see any stamps on them. Right, I don't know what's underneath this. I'd have to take this off to see. So I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. Nobody wakes up to have their life torn apart, upside down. Have a tremendous responsibility placed on their shoulders when you least expected it. Right? And then have a bunch of expectations piled on. Right? And then basically being pushed into a corner where you're looking at making a commitment for the rest of your life, and you're not sure even what that commitment is, other than you're at the mercy of all these so-called professionals that you know, are looking for everything wrong and nothing right. You know, the more that's wrong with Amari, the more they can continue to see him. Is that not true? That's true. Right? So he's the, inside weapon to keep the family arguing. In a roundabout way, that is. So I figure, just keep doing what you can in a day. That's all you can do. Right? I'm not here to hold anybody back. I can always wrap this back up again. I want to see what this handle looks like. I can, what do you call it? I'll just take it one day at a time. Can't see people. Amari hardly ever gets a cold. Like I said, he was getting more colds when he was being transported back and forth 3 times a week. He was getting more colds, but outside of that, he doesn't get colds very often. Right? He doesn't have seizures. Right? He's not a bad baby. He's not fussy, per se. Right? Only when he wants something, he might squawk a bit. Right? He's happy. And that's still not good enough. He doesn't get ear infections. Very seldom. I think he's only maybe, I don't even know. I don't even think he's ever had an antibiotic in his life, people. In terms of like an infection of any kind. I don't think so. I don't recall. Right? And what does that tell you? It tells you that he's healthy. I don't know what we got here. I guess it doesn't really matter. It seems to be solid. This is painted or something. Well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm never going to see it anyway. I want to cover this up a little bit more. Of course, there's other issues going on in there, but I think that's the big one, to be honest with you. It's the responsibility that comes around making a lifelong commitment for something that you weren't prepared to have to make, never mind even think about it as you're growing up, right? In regards to Brooks, Sierra, and Shimei, I'm telling you people, this is the way it's going to be dealt with, okay? It's all going to fall into that timeline when I write this notice of claim. With the targeting of my family. And you'll see that by 2003, what happened when they cut me off of social assistance, right? Brooks, for example, was in high school. He was transitioning into a different high school. He wanted to play football, so he was going to a different high school that had a football team. But through being cut off of welfare, and I've mentioned this before, I had to place Brooks in a secondary location. And so therefore, for 3 months, whatever it was, he stayed with his older half-brother who had fucking issues. But besides that point, you know, by the time Brooks got back to the shanty shack with me, because, you know, he didn't really want to stay in the little submarine with Marcane and Uncle John in that 2-bedroom apartment. So he spent more time at his older brother's house, right? But he didn't complete school, people. He was disrupted. We lost our house. You know, he was like 18 years old, right? And it was hard on him. So by the time we showed up at Sarah's house, after I moved us out of that 2-bedroom apartment that was leaky like a boat, you know, he ended up going into the bedroom that I had for Sierra. But by this time, that room kind of sat empty for about 6 months. I was only a 3-bedroom place, right? It kind of sat empty for 6 months because of Sierra's bullshit with her drug addiction. Plus, she went into some sort of, I don't know, youth home or something for a little while through the court system. So it removed her from the house and she went into Abbotsford. That's where that lady was giving her tuna sandwiches every day. So the room sat empty, so Brooks ended up coming home, right? And he took over that room, and he lived in that room for a year. And through that legislation that they brought in, he didn't qualify for social assistance when he turned 19. Right? So I got like no support for him of any kind. And he couldn't go on social assistance, and he couldn't finish school, people. He had to go to work. He had to go to work. And just through that whole transitional period, that's, you know, he kind of went loopy. He got real angry, people, just because our life just came crashing down, and just the whole drama and trauma around it. And, you know, and it took him a while to kind of get his feet in the ground. And once he got his feet in the ground, I don't know, he started drinking late in age. He was like 20, 21, 22 or something when he started drinking, people. By this time, he hadn't been drinking yet, but the stress of just losing the house and, you know, having to live with his crazy brother, and, you know, then coming back to the shanty shack, and it was nothing compared to what we had. And, you know, then he had to go to work. He had no choice. He couldn't finish school, and because I couldn't support him because I was cut off of welfare, people. I had no money, right? I had no fucking money. All I had was credit cards and a little bit of family allowance, right? For 2 kids. That was it. Well, Marcane, I had Marcane, Shemaine, Tisha. That was my family allowance, and then my credit cards, right? Basically. And so, you know, he didn't finish school, and he ended up getting a management position for a building, and that's when he started drinking. And after that, I don't know, people, he just went for a fucking loop, right? But for some reason, that's my fault. That's not my fault, people. But I get it thrown at me. And then Sierra, at the same time, when they cut me off of welfare, right? Sierra was homeschooling with... I brought her out of school because she turned into an addict with methamphetamine. So I brought her home. And then when I got cut off of welfare, but she wanted to go, like, I don't know, it's been so fucking long, man, I can't remember. I brought her home when I found out she was a drug addict from school. When I really clued in that, oh my God, I have a drug addicted kid at 13 years old to methamphetamine, not even understanding what methamphetamine was, okay? So I brought her home to get her away from that whole scene, okay? And then somehow she wanted to go back to school or something. No, I brought her home. I didn't want to put her in school. I wanted just to keep her away from all the kids in the neighborhood, just everything, right? To get her away from doing methamphetamine. Everything was kind of okay. I got cut off of welfare, and then I had to move out within a month. Went into the 2-bedroom apartment, and because this is how it worked, people, and because I couldn't have all my kids on the lease because it was a 2-bedroom apartment, I had to set up those secondary, what do you call those things? Living accommodations for my 2 older children. So I had made arrangements for Sierra to stay with her friend, mother, who I bought a bed for and had a bed there, and I was paying this woman, right, to have Sierra there part-time, as I asked her to encourage Sierra to come home at the 2-bedroom apartment, because she had her own bed there, right? But because Sierra was friends with this girl, the girl influenced Sierra, right? And tried to encourage her to do bad things or whatever, because apparently I found out years later the mother herself was a heroin addict. I didn't know that, people. And because that girl was going to school, she wanted Sierra to go to school, so I agreed. And then as soon as they got Sierra back in the system, instead of putting her in a regular classroom, they put her in a portable, right, outside of the school with kids that had drug problems and that were on, what is that stuff called? Ritalin and those types of things. And then that's where Sierra started to learn how to sniff Ritalin. And this is why I didn't want her in school, people. But I was helpless to do anything about it, because I was sitting up in that 2-bedroom leaky fucking apartment, just trying to survive, because my government kicked me in my fucking teeth and knocked them out, basically, as my kids were crashing. So by the time I moved into the shanty shack, Sierra was completely out of control, and that's why that bedroom, out of a 3-bedroom, one of them sat basically empty for 6 months. So when Brooks came back, I said, okay, you can have that room, because, Sierra's over there or whatever. If she comes home, she can come into the girls' room, who at that time I had Shimei, Tisha, and I was looking after Gari for the Ministry of Children and Family Development. And I used to sleep at the end of the bed like a fucking dog, people. Gari was on the top bunk. This is the little girl that I looked after without getting paid for 3.5 years while I lived in that shanty shack. Right? And Tisha and Shimei slept on the bottom bunk this way, where I slept at the end of the bunk this way like a dog. So when Sierra would come home, she'd sleep on the floor with a mattress. As Brooks struggled to become independent before he was ready, after he was basically forced out of school in order to support himself, because I didn't have the means to do it. And it tipped him over the fucking edge with the stress. And then he started masking it over with alcohol. That's my fault. Shimei, I don't understand how it's my fault that Shimei got murdered, other than Shimei was too stuck up with the internet, right? Following the trends in terms of building your self-esteem around, like, when Shimei used to get mad at me, she'd say something similar. Oh, you can't hold down a relationship. You can't keep... Even my son has said this to me when he's been mad in the past. You can't hold down a relationship, you know. And it's people. It's not about I can't hold down a relationship. It's that a relationship isn't going to hold me back. There's a difference between being held back by a relationship or holding down a relationship so that you can brag on about how you have a relationship and then end up dead over that relationship. Right? You know, at least I'm alive to be able to tell the tales versus being dead because I had something to prove to the world how I could hold down a relationship, put all my eggs in one basket in one man, as if that's where my self-esteem comes from. Right? When you're busy being a mom, just trying to hold your family together as you're being targeted, but not realizing that you're being targeted until it's too late and half your family is gone. Literally gone, and you're left with the Lord of the Rings. Right? That's kind of like how, as you're with Amari on the fucking dinner plate, and everybody's got their fork in them. Right? That's pretty much how it kind of boils down to, people. So the easiest and the safest way to release that pressure valve is to scream at Mom, I hate you, I hate you. You're lousy this, you're lousy that. You don't do enough of this, you don't do enough of that. Right? Because you've been conditioned to I don't know, something. So I think before I sand this down, I can probably wipe this with a thing that I've got. Right? So maybe I should go get it. Maybe we should try it right now. Hold on. Okay, so basically there's other issues going on too, like I'm supposed to be up on my game, people. You know, when I'm out in the yard doing man stuff, heavy duty, whatever, I have to stick with the format, because if I don't, we know what will happen in the long run. It will be just held against me. And then if I'm outside working, right, I only have so much energy, people. You have to remember, 10 years in this yard is really kind of taking a toll on my body, right? And, you know, I only have so much energy, so what happens when I'm spending a lot of time outside? The inside falls apart. If I spend a lot of time on the inside, the outside falls apart, and somehow it all goes back to me, and it becomes my problem, right? I'm the problem. I'm the one that's not doing enough. I'm not doing it fast enough. I'm not doing it to the person's expectations, whoever that person may be. You know, it's kind of like the same shit that's going on with the Mari. Why is he not talking? Here, stuff an apple in his mouth, and maybe he'll learn to gnaw on it, and that will help him to start talking. Like, okay, you know, just make sure he doesn't choke when you do it, right? So just shit like that, right? As you're being told that the MRI isn't going to give you any answers that you want, because it's not about getting answers, it's about protective medicine now. So anyway, I cleaned that off a bit. You can see that. It's coming in more like a copper than it is a brass. You can clearly see the difference. So, for whatever reason, these are handmade. These are handmade. They have to be. There's no stamp on them. And up in here, because they've been whacked so hard so many times, it's actually released a little bit of its soldering here. You can see right? And this one is a little off. So at some point in the future, maybe what I should do, just to make sure that they're safe, is take it to a machine shop, or like, someplace where they work with cars or whatever, and just ask the guys in there to maybe straighten it out just a tad, just in this part, and maybe just touch it up with the solder. Because when you move it, you can hear it. So where is it rattling? I don't know. Because it doesn't really want to go any well. So at some point in the future, maybe I'll just put them in the buggy, go on my merry way, and go find a auto body shop or a machine shop or something that works on motors or something, and just ask the guys in the shop just to give it a quick solder and straighten it out so it doesn't, when you start, if I'm in the yard and I start swinging these things around, the last thing I want is for them to pop out, right? Go flying over there. This is the other one. This one rattles too. But the solder on this one isn't so bad. Something on the inside. In here. Rattling. Anyway. So, itchy hand now. I don't know, people. I'm just gonna... I just feel like my life is a train wreck. I do. I feel like no matter what I'm gonna do, it doesn't matter. Too many negative forces around me. Too many people wanting to have control of whatever they're trying to control. And, my family is just easy pickings. Right? They've been easy pickings for a long time, and the pickings are just getting easier. Because the adults are being knocked off one by one, as I'm being blamed for it. Right? By people that don't even want to take the time to learn anything from me. Nothing. So anyway, this is the first book that I wanted to give away when I did that live stream with Tiffany Draper. We were supposed to follow up on it. It hasn't happened yet. Anyway, the book is still here. This one is for what? Miss Mysterious. Your book is still here. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's still here. I did pull up a crock pot book, a couple of them actually, for Kelly, but I don't even know if Kelly watches my videos anymore because she hasn't commented for a very long time. So, and then we've got Francis in the fray here, which I haven't really kind of picked a book or a selection of books for you to choose from, because I'm basically just waiting to kind of get this table cleared off a little bit more and just kind of get them into the envelopes, put my return addresses on them, and then just kind of get them out in the mail 2 or 3 at a time. The box is sitting there. However, the collection box with the little lock on it, I can't find the key to open the lock. I'm thinking it must be in my bedroom, so I have to root around looking for a key to open that particular lock, because I don't have that key. It's somewhere else. So the box is sitting right there, with the cloth diapers all piled up on them that I haven't even cut yet. Right? And then what's going to end up happening is, because Sassy from Kansas apparently sent me some sort of envelope through the mail, through regular mail, and I've never received it, people. So for whatever reason, that envelope disappeared through the postal system. which tells me that if I send these out, I wanted this to send them out through regular mail because I don't want to have to pay the extra shipping fee, right? In terms of a tracking number, I don't feel that we should have to do that in order to protect our packages or even our envelopes for that matter. But it kind of looks like that, right? And then, of course, you know, it's going to cost more money to send them out. And, you know, the only thing I would want in return would be the dollar amount of whatever it costs to send out the book in stamps. Unused stamps. American stamps, if these are going to the States. Which these ones would be, right? So that I can just add it to my stamp collection for the kids, basically. That's all. The only thing is, if you're going to put unused stamps in an envelope and then send it through regular mail, am I going to get them? Oh, now you're having to register an envelope? Like, it's kind of like getting to be expensive just to send out books, right? But they're here, and I mean, I can't change things, people. I can only keep up with things, right? And hold down the fort, right? For whatever fort is left. There's that angel. That is finally done. If you notice, I added in another fold. You can actually make quite a few things with books, believe it or not. So I'm debating whether I should add in another fold. Maybe just something like that down there. I don't know. Just to give it another look. Or maybe start fresh with a new book. It's not really showing in there, right? So maybe I'll just leave it like that. Next time, cut out the thicker ones with the utility knife. They're kind of annoying. There's a couple over here. Where is it? Alright, those are the covers. You can see they kind of like, they don't really fit. Alright. But maybe I'll cover the back with some fabric or something, and you won't even see that. So anyway, that part's been done. Move on with that. Now I'm tired, people. It's going on 7 in the morning, and I've been up since 4. No, 3. I've been up since 3. I just wanted to come in here and start clearing off the table. Right? Get on with doing other things in here.